Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Now, if you're not connected, this is for the new customers who are going to buy this thing today and enjoy all these goodies. All you need to do is dial *400# or visit again my Safaricom app and get connected today.
Fantastic stuff. And that's what we're looking into, and you'll give us more information about that as we go along. All right, let's look into a conversation. And joining us in the studio this morning, two guests. Dr. Nyaumbo Joseph is a corporate psychiatrist at the Chirombo Hospital Group. Good morning.
Good morning, thank you.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
Thank you for being here this morning. Mushiri Karanja is a journalist and mental health advocate, also joining us in the room this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Karibu sana. Thank you both for being here. We're looking into issues around suicide. Before we get into it, because it's going to be a bit thick, Dennis is going to welcome you to today's proverb. We'd love to get your interpretation of it, and he'll tell you where it's from as well. So just in case you're wondering, Dennis goes to a different African country every week. He lands there and we come back with a little bit of information from those countries, and Africa specific, and then he shares a proverb. And we'd love to get your interpretation of it.
Yeah, so the country we're in today is Comoros, a country that is known for its vanilla. You know, there's also a lot of fishing because it's an island country. And it is bordering Madagascar and Mozambique and the Indian Ocean. But let's go to the proverb today. A man without culture is like a zebra without stripes. A man without culture is like a zebra without stripes. How would you interpret that, Mushiri?
Well, basically means without culture, you cannot be defined. Because, sure, the zebra is an animal. I mean, a zebra has black stripes and white, or white stripes and black. So in case if you don't have any culture, then you cannot be defined. That's basically what I think it means.
Dr.
Yeah, I think culture is part of your identity, and you don't have to prescribe to a specific culture. It could be maybe you are from the Nairobian culture, for example. So if you have no identity, you are stripeless. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But are they usually white stripes or black stripes?
That's a good question. Is a zebra a white animal with black stripes, or is it a black animal with white stripes? Okay, let's not confuse Mr. Okari this morning, because clearly he's a deer stuck in the headlights.
It's a black animal with white stripes.
Is it?
Yeah.
Why not a white animal?
So if you
with black-
shave a zebra, would the skin be black?
I think so.
Or if you shave the white strips, do you mean underneath is black?
No, it will be red.
Okay.
Oh, God. Oh.
It's like trying to explain how a black cow eats green grass produces yellow butter and white milk.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
That's so complicated.
So what color will the skin be?
Of what?
Of the zebra?
I don't know. I've never skinned. Look. Okay, look.
It's just a hide.
It's like black sheep and white sheep, the color of the fur. So we can imagine that the fur and the pattern is white and then black and then white and black. But is it white fur on top of black fur, or is it black fur on top of white fur? This could go on for days.
That's
my
a problem,
God.
actually.
Yeah.
So I guess we're trying to figure the thing out, and we should. Kenya's crude suicide rate is estimated about 6.1 deaths per 100,000 people. The age standardized suicide rate is slated to 11 per 100,000. In 2019, Kenya recorded 3,214 deaths by suicide. Men die by suicide much more than women. In 2019, the 3,214 suicides, about 2,371 were men and 843 were women. The true numbers are likely higher than the ones that are recorded for any kind of national uptake. Data from civil registration between 2018 and 2019 shows increases in suicide deaths in some years, but reporting issues make trends uncertain. Social stigma, limited mental health services, and low detection rates of mental illness contribute to the challenge. Now, those are numbers, but let's look at the numbers from the last 2 months. July, August, 468 suicides in 2 months. And if you want to use that as a sample study, if you're looking at about 200 per month, what are you looking at per year? So that's the conversation that we're having this morning. It's a horrible thing to then imagine. So we'll start with you, Dr. Tell us what suicide is. And it sounds rudimentary, but let's understand what it is.
Yeah, thank you. I think first and foremost, thank you for having me here. It's a good idea that we have such conversations, especially around September, which is Suicide Awareness Month. Suicide and death by suicide is when there is intentional injury to yourself with an aim to die. And there are also other things that you can say, something like attempted suicide, where there is intentional harm to die, but you end up not dying. There is also something called para-suicide, where you have intentional harm at yourself, but the intention is not to die. And all these things are in a continuum. They might start from just thoughts, which people might call suicidal ideation. Actually, something called tedium vitae, which is maybe thoughts that life would be better without you in here. Then moving to suicidal thoughts, then ideation, then you have an attempt and a plan. And that is what suicide primarily could be described as in the mental health space. Yeah.
Okay. So suicide, until now, is criminalized in Kenya. There are conversations to say, let us remove the criminal element from suicide, because it's not for fun that somebody would engage, right? It's not a sport that somebody says, okay, well, let's see if we can kill ourselves. No. There usually is an underlying issue, right? And so what are the things that lead to suicide? We'll stay on you, Dr. for just a minute. What are the things that lead to somebody imagining that they could cause themselves harm leading to death?
Actually, regarding criminalization of suicide, this year is a landmark year for us because in January 9th, the penal code was repealed by the High Court judge to decriminalize it. So now the matter is in the National Assembly to finish it up. And this is to explain, because it's almost like if someone came here with malaria, you start bashing them for having a fever. So suicide in itself is a symptom. And a symptom of an illness should not be a criminal offense, because it leads now to more and more stigma, starting with self-stigma and thinking that I wouldn't talk about suicide because I would be sentenced to jail for 2 years if I had an attempt. And things, you asked about things to watch out for. First and foremost, most people who have suicidal thoughts and suicidal attempts have a diagnosable mental illness. To say that actually up to 90%, if they were to visit a mental health expert and some assessments were done, they would pick an illness that would be treatable, and these suicidal thoughts would disappear.
I'm sorry, I need you to repeat that last thing that you've just said. 90% of who?
Up to 90% of people who have suicidal thoughts have a diagnosable mental health condition.
Okay.
To mean that it is a symptom, and it's not that it's either bad behavior or that they are sign of weakness, or it's maybe culturally thinking that they have been cursed. No. It is a medical diagnosable illness.
Okay. Well, Sherry, you're a journalist and also an advocate for wellness.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
We are turning up the heat on Star Times. Unravel the thriller mystery of the evil eye returns on Starlight. Fall for the irresistible charm of What's Wrong with Secretary Kim on Novella E+. Get absorbed in the emotional twist of My Wonderful Life on Novella E. Step into the all-new season of Hello Mr. Right, Kenya's most exciting dating reality show on Rainbow Plus. Renew your subscription today, starting from just 329 Kenya shillings for Nyota Bouquet on the aerial decoder, or 549 Kenya shillings for Nova Bouquet on the dish decoder. Download the StarTimes app to stay connected anytime, anywhere. StarTimes. Enjoy digital life.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
In the world. It means by the end of this program, about 180 people will have attempted suicide in the world by the end of this program. When you break it down that way, it becomes, the reality hits closer home. All right? Dr. says suicide, people do not kill themselves because of problems. Let's make that very clear here. I have that on authority. Some years ago, I was sent to cover a story of a man who jumped from the 8th floor of some building in Nairobi. And I went, found the man, jumped from the 8th floor to the mezzanine floor. Of course, he was dead. And when I went back to the newsroom, I was directed to go and talk to some experts. And that's how I landed with Dr. Frank Jenga. And I had my story written. I mean, it's a simple stories. A man has jumped and died. A simple story, close. Then Frank looks at me and laughs. So I tell Frank, this gentleman actually left a suicide note. Said his wife, his job. But Frank says, hold. This man did not kill himself because of his wife. He didn't kill himself because he didn't have a job. He didn't kill himself because he had money problems. This man killed himself because he was ill. Right? So we had an argument back and forth with Frank, and that was an eye-opening moment for me. You could call it my Damascus moment as far as suicide is concerned. And I realized that most of us actually do not realize that we actually attach the wrong reasons for suicide. We say people died because they had no jobs. People died because they had problems at home. People died because of relationship problems. Dr. has just said it right here. People do not kill themselves because of problems. People do not kill themselves because of all those. Let's not blame other people for people killing themselves. People kill themselves because they have an underlying mental health problem. Now, let's break down the mental health problem for you. 1 in every 4 Kenyans has some mental health issue. Daktari, you correct me if I'm wrong. All right? So if people kill themselves because they have an underlying mental health problem, it basically means 1 in every 4 people is a potential suicide case in Kenya.
So we're sitting here, 5 people in this room.
Yes.
And what you're telling us is that Dennis Okari
One among us.
or someone
Yeah.
could have a mental health issue.
Yes.
All right.
That's a fact. It means one of us here must have contemplated suicide at some point.
Okay.
Strikes on me.
It does.
And you see, when we have such discussions, especially on matters suicide, you look at the society we are in, the African society, and that is considered an abomination. You know, it is wrong for you to even think about it. The stereotypes that do exist, and you'd find it's the reason why those who are ill do not come out to speak. Because then what will the society say? You know, especially if you look at the numbers among men, we've been told, wewe kwa mwanaume, be as hard as a rock. And Daktari, as all these things do exist, how difficult does it get in terms of people seeking care and help?
Okay, I'll confirm to you what you just said. Up to 77% of people who die by suicide are in low and middle income countries. And most of deaths by suicide are, up to 20% are from pesticide ingestion, which are in agricultural areas.
Wait, what percentage again?
Up to 20% of death by suicide globally.
Globally, pesticides.
Pesticide.
Okay.
Yeah. So to mean that most of these deaths are happening around low middle income countries where there's agriculture, where there's, apart from that, also things like poverty, things like, now we talk about culture. We spoke about culture earlier when we started. And the culture around the Africans, for example, is that mental health and mental ill health is maybe witchcraft. And that in itself is stigmatizing. People will argue that maybe mental health and mental ill health is a Western issue. But if you were to look back into our true African culture and identity, you will notice that even back in the day, there were some ways in which our forefathers used to treat mental ill health by having barazas, sitting down together and discussing.
Talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And even debriefing. One of my teachers used to tell us that in the African work week, it was a 4-day work week. And then at the end of the 4 days, you would sit at a baraza maybe in a soko, in a market, and discuss issues around people. There's that lady who had a pregnancy. Where is she? Or she gave birth. There's that gentleman who I can't see what happened. Or he did that. He did. And all those discussions and the decompressions are what help people and prevent and promote mental health. So once there was a mixture of our culture with other cultures, that's when maybe problems started around mental health, and now coming up with stigma and thinking that probably this is a problem. So the more we talk and destigmatize it, the more we understand that this is a problem that can be solved, and it's very treatable, just like how pneumonia is treatable, the easier it is for us to move forward.
So how do you do that? Because this is a thing, and we must be honest. I want to come to you in a bit, Mushiri, but from a physiological, psychological, psychiatric point of view, we talk about it being an illness. We say that it is a disease. Mental health will manifest as a disease in very many ways. But it's difficult for us to connect with that because how we have associated with disease is I will see a physical representation of an illness. Somebody will have a fever, I can touch their warm. I will see maybe somebody is vomiting, somebody is shivering, and I will see physiological manifestation of that, right?
Yeah.
So it's difficult for us to reconcile with somebody having a disease or an illness that we cannot see, touch.
Okay.
How do we now become more sensitive to that with an understanding?
We started very clear self-care practices. If you notice any of these self-care practices in your life are worsening, it's a good idea to get assessment. So let's say, for example, you're not having adequate sleep, recommended 7 to 9 hours a day. You're not having a good balanced diet. You're not communing with people around you. So it could be a golf club. It could be maybe a reading club, and you're not going to church anymore. It could be that either you are also unable to do activities of daily living. So you're not able to come to work, and people have noticed that, and they start saying, oh, Dennis is becoming a bad employee. Or not able to go to school, and they're saying, oh, this Kijana is now a naughty boy. When you notice any behavior change, you notice that you are unable to relate with people around you. That is a time to, especially if it is persistent, consistent for a couple of days to weeks, to a point that it affects your functionality. So relationships, work, or school.
So this is a disease, but it's a disease of the mind.
The mind, yes.
Okay.
My question is, okay, so you said out of 4 people, 1 has
mental health,
issues. How do you diagnose yourself? What are this? So if somebody is just sitting at home and they're thinking about this, like everybody else has, everybody has issues, different issues. You've got work issues, relational issues, marriage issues, and all sorts of things. But how then do you diagnose yourself and tick the boxes and realize, wait, I'm actually on that threshold that might lead me then to do this? What are the symptoms or signs? How do you do that?
Gladly, as you said, nowadays there's a lot of AI and internet. So even, for example, in our website, Chiromo Hospital Group, there is what we call self-assessment tools. So you could, it's almost like having a mirror in front of you. You can decide to look at it every day, every week, every month. But you can say, hey, I feel I'm not well. You just go and check on an assessment tool on anxiety, for example, or on alcohol use disorder. And you tick the boxes and you see, hey, this is beyond normal. So the diagnosis happens when now you visit a doctor or a psychiatrist or a psychologist who can do a clinical diagnosis.
Are you able to give us a few before even going to going online, because not everybody will have access? This morning we're reading a story of ChatGPT in the US. There's a lawsuit by these parents who are suing the company OpenAI, saying that their teenager actually went to ChatGPT and was typing how actually to it's difficult how to commit suicide. That's the time we were used to. Then from COVID, things changed to die by suicide. And actually, ChatGPT was actually telling this teenager this is how to do it. And the teenager finally died. But just take us through, for somebody who's listening, and they want to know, okay, why is my spectrum in this? What are the symptoms that I have mental health challenges?
Okay, let me use an example of, let's say, a depressive illness. So the questionnaire, which is called a BDI or a Beck's Depression Inventory, will have questions like, I've been feeling sad for most of the day, almost every day, for the past couple of 1 or 2 weeks. Other than feelings of sadness, maybe I've also been feeling like my feelings of guilt, feelings of anger, feelings of worthlessness, feelings of hopelessness, feelings like my sleep is not good. Either I'm sleeping too much or I'm sleeping too little. Either my appetite is not good. Either I'm eating too much or eating too little. Either I have suicidal thoughts. Either I have a reduction in interest in things I used to like before. I have low energy. And when you tick, it's either they will tell you, is it happening almost every day for the past 2 weeks? Is it happening most of the time? Is it happening? Once you finish that assessment, it is able to score and tell you this is possibility of severe depression, mild, moderate, or the same. But that is not a diagnosis, just an assessment. Now that you cannot go to the doctor who can assess or can do a diagnosis. The challenge happens where you are having the mind which is supposed to make the judgment call that you're not well, and you become too unwell that it cannot judge that you're unwell. So it's called lack of insight. So those people who know, you notice, you tell them, hey, you're not well. But the mind cannot conceive the fact that they're not well. If you had a fracture, the mind can tell you that you have pain. Yeah, but if you have mental pain, it can't tell you that you have mental anguish.
Okay.
That is where now the people around you can notice. Now they notice this gentleman is not does not perform as well as he used to, or is now more irritable. And that is why sometimes that they are brought to hospital by family and not by themselves voluntarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moshe, I want to ask you again, what have you seen that would show that there's a problem, probably higher than we are handling in society today? Those numbers we've given are of world numbers, but they are actually representative of the numbers in Kenya. So what have you seen that would convince you and talk to us about how serious this problem is?
Okay, I think we need not go any further than the mental health report that I'm sure it's gathering dust somewhere, some office somewhere, because there was a presidential task force on mental health, right? And part of the reports, the findings were that actually mental health in Kenya should be declared a national emergency.
Yes.
A presidential declaration that mental health is a public health emergency. Already that tells you that researchers are saying, look, Kenyans, we have a problem here. When you go to the stats again, the report says clearly that it's difficult to capture the data on suicide cases in Kenya for a very simple reason. Very few cases are reported, right? Why? Because of stigma. Suicide has been illegal for a long time, right? Very few people will say our kin died of suicide, right? So that tells you that the figures we are speaking about here are just what we know. That there'll be, for every one case of suicide, there will be several others unreported out there. So if one person is killing themselves in every 20 seconds, and 20 people are trying in every 20 seconds, these numbers could be higher than this.
For sure.
But because of the stigma, because we don't want to talk about it, because we want to think that, suicide is a witchcraft case, for example, you'd be surprised that a majority of Kenyans would rather take up someone who is mentally ill to a witch doctor or to a local pastor, right? Not realizing that suicide, the mental health issues that culminate in suicide can be treated, can be handled. And that's why experts are here. So,
but can it also be spiritual? Because it goes from this other divide then, who argue. And I've had cases, I mean, let's talk stories. There are stories you'll hear. And I've had cases where somebody will just say that they've just been having nightmares, or they have these dreams at night and they keep hearing a voice speaking to them, and they will say demons. And I've actually interviewed, there's a gentleman who killed an entire family in Kakamega many, many years ago. And when he was being interviewed, and now later when I was talking to this gentleman, I was asking him, okay, so what led you to kill your wife and your 3 kids? And because when talking to the neighbors, they're saying this guy was very normal. He was going to the farm like everybody else, up in the shopping center, and everything looked okay. Then one morning he just woke up. Then everybody's crying in the village. And I asked him, so what made you kill your wife and your 3 kids? And he says, mimi sijui, nilisikia tu kitu imeniingia, shetani imeniingia, ikaniambia, chukua panga, anza katakata hao. And so that's the explanation from this person. And so then the argument is, can it also be spiritual as much as it is,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's why I'm personally conflicted at times with this, because it cuts both ways. If you speak to people of the faith, they will say, yes, this thing can be spiritual. Then scientists will say, no, this thing is very, very much about your mental health. It has nothing to do with your spiritual being.
Actually, there is a spiritual component to mental health. The World Psychiatry Association has a position statement on spirituality and mental health, to mean that scientists are now seeing the importance of spirituality in mental health, to a point that we used to be taught that there's a biopsychosocial aspect which is there's a biological aspect, a psychological, and a social aspect to mental health. But now we know that there is also a spiritual aspect, and we are taught about that to first and foremost understand that there is that aspect, to a point that we are even involving religious leaders in this aspect. There was a very huge forum, I think, beginning of this month or last month at the Aga Khan University Hospital, where they met the Interreligious Council of Leaders to help them understand mental health. Because most people who suffer mental health conditions, as he has rightfully said, will go to their spiritual leader first. So if they even told us that most of their prayer requests are of the mental health nature. So if we pick them from there, it's easier if we work together and understand the spiritual component of mental health. We are able to catch more people with mental health conditions and treat them.
But now the challenge comes in, Mushiri. If that is what is now coming as a prayer request, like you're saying, and you're maybe talking to the clergy, how then do you treat it? Is it by prayer? Is it by medicine?
That's a good question. Look, it's good to believe. Faith is good. You cannot survive without faith, because faith gives you hope. It's good to involve, and it's good that we're involving our spiritual leaders in matters suicide. Why? Because it's our spiritual leaders who interact with Kenyans every Sunday, the whole day, from 8 to sometimes past midnight in Kesha, that is it. So it's good to involve them, because they are the ones to notice when Mushiri, I saw you in church today, you didn't look so well, right? Or Mushiri didn't come to church. Or Mushiri was used to coming to church, is now turned to alcohol and drug abuse, right? So they notice the symptoms, right? So it's good to involve them. But at the same time, it's also good to have some faith in science also, right? To believe that the mental illnesses, the mental situation conditions that end up to suicide can be treated, right? Can be managed by professional doctors. So as much as we believe in the power of prayer, let's also believe that also God has given these health professionals the power also to help us cope with some of these things.
So Mushiri, as we talk about this collaboration between the faith actors and doctors, right? It is a mix that hasn't been there for a while. But now look at it from a perspective of a patient who then one would say, I only believe my pastor, right? So how do we have these conversations such that they understand that there's this collaboration that works together? Because also there has been, allegations rather, that pastors want to do their thing and the medical fraternity want to do their thing. Are we having that conversations as both the church and the doctors? And are we also involving the patients or the public to know that we can do both? Are you seeing those conversations happening?
I think you're right. I agree with you. That, and I like what he said, that we have to involve everyone in this fight, right? Whether you're spiritual leaders, political leaders, everyone must get on board, right? If people who feel they are thinking suicidal thoughts, they're thinking suicide, if they trust their pastor, let's involve the pastor. And then let's use the pastor to get this man or woman connected to a doctor. And the matter is solved. I think it's that simple.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's talk personal experiences here then, Mushiri, because you've written about your experience in a mental ward. You've written about your experience with mental illness and attempted suicide. What is that about?
Well, that's a tough question. Okay. One of the reasons I'm here is because I guess I'm a convert in this gospel that we need to talk about mental health, make it part of everyday discourse. And yes, it's true. I've had some time, I've sought help for a number of issues, including depression, anxiety. And yes, it's true. I've been to some facilities in Nairobi to address some of issues, from anxiety to depression. And this is why we say that we need the doctors to tell you when you're depressed. Don't try to tell yourself to diagnose yourself that I'm depressed. All right? That's
yeah,
where
we
we
hear
go
people
wrong.
saying it all the time.
Yes, some people say if they're feeling sad, they're depressed. Talk to the professionals. They'll tell you, yes, you have all the signs of depression, right? That's the first step towards healing.
Okay, hold on.
It's a lot of courage.
What were the signs for you? Because you know why this helps, Moshiri.
Good question.
Is people will, okay, well, could it be that this is where I am? What were the signs for you to know that it was not just triste on a Tuesday, or sadness on a Tuesday?
Blue Monday.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That you know, were actually, what did you do? What did you engage for you to know that here I am and things are not so good?
Well, I think for me, I would like to think that having suicidal thoughts basically is not about taking a rope and putting it around your neck. Sometimes you might have some suicidal tendencies, right? It could go to heavy drinking, all right, where you don't even care about tomorrow, all right, because you don't think there's tomorrow anyway. So you go out there, you drink heavily, someone will ask, why are you behaving like this? Why are you behaving like this not tomorrow? You're being suicidal here, all right? It could be just those deep depression moments where you wake up in the morning and you have a very good job, you have a very good family, but you simply don't feel like facing the day.
You want to stay in bed?
You just want to stay in bed. You look ahead of you, you just see darkness. You don't see any reason to go to work. And you have a very good job. You don't feel like anybody cares anyway. And you have a very good family, very good friends. So you just lie there, you're all alone, nursing this darkness, fighting.
And would there be
alone.
Something that would trigger these feelings for you? Was there something and that you realized, or an incident that would make you start to feel this kind of way?
It's tough to tell the triggers, and that's where the professionals come in. It takes a lot of counseling for someone to take you through this and tell you these are your triggers, okay? It could be anything. It could be a thought, right? It could be just a thought that, oh, I feel so lonely today. I feel so useless today, all right? It could be just a thought like, oh God, I don't like what the boss said to me yesterday, so why bother going to work today? It might sound, it's actually irrational. When you get over it, you realize some of these things were actually irrational, yeah? It could be a phone call. It could be just simple triggers, yeah? It's not an earthquake moment as such, all right? So for me, it's all those things and more. A word here, a thought there, some childhood memories. Sometimes now that when you go through counseling, that's when you realize, could be some of these things I was going through started a long time ago, even before I realized I was depressed.
Yeah.
All right. But do not self-diagnose. It takes a professional to tell you, hey, you are depressed. So it takes some courage. Take that step of courage to see a professional. Tell them how you feel. This is why we're actually calling upon an open door policy in our hospitals, okay? The same way I can go to a hospital and tell a doctor I have a fever, all right? I Exactly.
Did you ever try to take your own life, Moshiri?
Tough question. Yes, I guess I have.
Why?
That's the question. In many cases, when you tell people, yes, you have tried, that's the first question that comes. Why? All right. And so I don't blame you for asking, why? Because there's no reason to kill yourself, because the only reason people want to kill themselves is they're not well. That's the only reason, all right? And this being unwell is something that a doctor can handle, all right? So anybody who tells you, oh, I wanted to kill myself because my wife left me. Nah, I wanted to kill myself because my job was bad. Look, no woman will stay with you when you're mentally not well anyway, so don't blame your wife for wanting to kill yourself, all right? No boss will let you stay on their job when you're not mentally well. So don't blame your boss. You're saying, oh, my boss, or my job. You not perform very well in your job if you're not mentally well. So let's not look for scapegoats when we're talking about suicide here. People do not kill themselves because of any other reason besides the fact that they're unwell. It could be anxiety, it could be stress, it could be depression, which is if you look at the list of mental health conditions in Kenya from the mental health report, we have anxiety at number 2, all right? We have depression at number 3, all right? It could be, so there is no other reason a person would want to kill themselves except one, that they're unwell.
Okay.
And that being unwell can be handled by professionals. Yeah.
But can we outrightly rule out external factors? Because well, I'm not a doctor, can't diagnose, but are there situations where, for example, somebody's in a bad relationship or you're in a job, you don't have anxiety, you don't have confidence issues, you don't have any of those issues. You are just very diligent in your work, but you have a very wicked boss. Can that wicked boss, Daktari, then push you? Or maybe a bad marriage, because this is about the other person and how they're treating you. And we've had cases where somebody's persistently being told something that they're not, that then pushes them to the edge, and then they decide, you know what, I'm going to take my own life. Can we rule out just external factors that have nothing to do with you having any underlying mental health issues?
It's difficult because, as Mushiri said, there's the concept of the chicken or the egg. Which came first? Is it that you became mentally unwell and now silencing your boss as wicked?
Or was it a trigger?
Or is it that your boss was wicked and then you became mentally unwell?
Okay.
Or the boss was mentally unwell.
Yeah. There are a lot of factors there. And it could start from biologically. So not necessarily just a mental illness, even a medical condition. We know people who have chronic pain from cancer, wanting to die by suicide. It could be something like someone who has a thyroid problem and the hormonal imbalance causes them to be depressed and want to die by suicide. It could be something psychologically from when you were a child. Maybe you went through some traumatic events as a child, or maybe during the bomb blast you were somewhere there and you struggled with PTSD since then. It could be these social issues now you're talking about. So it's difficult to know which came before the other, but they are confounders, and they can be precipitators or they can be perpetuators towards suicide. So you could be unwell and then your boss adds in, and then your wife adds in, and then everything else adds in, and then that happens.
Let's talk about students in this case. There's a report I'm reading here in Kenya. It's a cross-sectional study that looked at 3,000 students. These are participants from various regions in the country. And it says 26.8% had experienced suicidal thoughts, the ideation concept you're talking about earlier. Then 14.9% had made suicidal plans. And then 15.7% had attempted suicide or self-harm attempts at least once. And they're looking at universities in Kenya, and 17.1 had suicidal thinking, 5.9 had suicidal planning, 7.8 had attempted suicide. And you're looking at a generation currently, and it's very, very detailed, but you're looking at the age group, and it's saying the age disaggregated is basically Gen Z. Example, Kenya's 18 to 25 or 25 to 30. If you're looking at what we have currently in our Kenyan society that is leading then for a lot of young people who are not necessarily in marriage, they may not necessarily be in serious relationships, or the idea that you have to take care of children, you have a lot of the responsibilities that then, because you are so overwhelmed, then you may end up having these thoughts. In your opinion, I guess this is for both of you, and maybe I'll start with you, Mushiri, because you've looked at data. When you're looking at this age group, that then we are saying is very, 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 very exposed. The other day we were just talking about, a lot of times you wake up at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, you go through TikTok, you go through the live links, you have a lot of young people who are actually not sleeping. So there was even a conversation around, what is it called, when people can't sleep at night?
Insomnia.
Insomnia. There was that idea that there are a lot of young people who are suffering insomnia, and then it leads to depression, leads to all these suicidal thoughts and whatnot. When you're looking at all this data, what currently can you then say is happening in the country with this age group?
That's a good question. Let's start with this argument that it's okay to be unwell. It becomes not okay when you cannot function, right? Mm-hmm. Right? So all of us have some, we're not all 100% well, right? But we only go to, it gets bad when you cannot function because you're unwell, right? 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 Now we go back to the youths again. They're killing themselves because they have reached that point where they can no longer function. All right? They get that depression, reach a point where they can't function no matter anymore. All right? Is the social media contributing to this? Yes, it is. Because simple research will tell you that social media leaves you more lonely. Unfortunately, that's where all our young people are right now. That space of loneliness. That space, that empty space where their best friend is their phone. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. That lonely space where you the world makes you think you're the last. That the world has already moved on, you're left, you're the only one left. All right? That space where everybody makes you think that I'm the least in this world. Everybody has moved on. Everybody's driving good cars. Everybody have a good job. Everybody has a good relationship. That's the social media. That's where these guys are. As a result, by the end of the day, they're lonely. By the end of the day, they're anxious. By the end of the day, they're depressed. By the end of the day, they want to kill themselves.
Dr. Maybe I can chime in on that. This issue around adolescent mental health and mental illness justifies the biological nature of these illnesses, because you see, as you rightfully said, they don't have what we perceive responsibilities of people to take care of, or relationships or something like that. But if, let's say, for example, I was to go to my clinic and see my patients, we have noticed that up to 50% of, even if it's a 45-year-old, up to 50% of adults, if you take a clear history, there is a likelihood of a child or a teenagehood illness that went untreated or undiagnosed. So you will notice that maybe at that time, it was told that this boy now started becoming very naughty. This boy's performance in school disappeared. This boy was now not being able to take care of himself. And it went undiagnosed. And then
of a traumatic nature, something of a traumatic nature may have happened?
A mental health illness might have happened that was undiagnosed.
Okay.
And then they went through life, and now they had a diagnosed one later on in life. So these adolescents in themselves have biological predisposition to any mental illness. Yourself, anyone, let's say the lifetime prevalence of depression is 4.4%. So you have a 4.4% chance of having depression even if there's no biological reason for that.
And are there mild, medium, or the mild and then severe cases of depression?
Yes.
That you could get mild depression and you could essentially overcome that. Is that possible?
Yes. People. There are some of these syndromes go untreated, and people might live through them, or they might have a long, prolonged illness of this kind.
Okay.
So, Dr. Let's look at the numbers. Now, let's look at the population that you have in the country. Majority of them are the young people. And if we look at the adolescents and the undiagnosed conditions, that tells you that at a later age, we need to focus more in this demography that people would assume have no responsibilities, anasumbua to schoolie and whatnot. But let's look at how we're starting to have this conversation with these young people such that they are able to speak. Are we creating environments where it is easier for a young person to go to the parent, or even just to say, I want to go see the doctor because I'm not feeling okay? We keep on saying it is okay not to be okay. But it ends there. We don't go further to say it is okay not to be okay, but to go seek for assistance. So in terms of even the research that you are doing, we have the numbers, like you said, that report is just gathering dust. Are we doing enough to having these conversations, and are we seeing more Kenyans seeking assistance?
Yeah, to be honest, I think we are trying. And I think the easiest way to do it is to speak their language. So you can't speak to a young boy the same way you'd speak to an adult. And that will mean for us to start using social media platforms more frequently to bring this awareness to them, to their doorstep. You will be surprised that most of the patients who come to see us voluntarily are young people. because they are not afraid to say that they're unwell. They will walk in and then the parents will follow them later to say that, hey, I didn't know that this gentleman was coming to hospital. So in as much as they are struggling, it seems like they might have more insight than the elder generation. And maybe social media has a way that it has played, and that is where we need to tap more and more.
Okay.
We have not done the most, but you can try.
And of course do better. So let's look at this report that came out. It was right around the time of COVID. That's when this national report came out. And when you look at matters governance, Moshiri, that when a national emergency is declared, what you essentially do is that you then give the president of the day the opportunity or the permission, essentially, to unlock resources that would then do something to handle that problem. So you're basically saying, okay, fine, open the purse. And this is what was needed, because the way you can walk to a level 2, 3, 4 and get primary health care essentially is what we are saying. Because of the nature of the problem in Kenya today, if you're feeling a certain type of way, if somebody in your family, your close network has noticed there's something going on here, you should be able to walk to a lower to mid-level tier hospital care facility and find somebody who will address the issue the same way they would address stitches or a headache. Is that what we're saying?
That's true.
Okay.
That's true.
And why then do we see that this does not happen? Are we not taking it seriously enough? Do we need more people to be taking their lives by suicide?
That's a good question. Look, I think we've gotten our priorities all wrong. Because if you look at the investments that we're putting into education, into water, sanitation, agriculture, millions of shillings, billions of shillings, right? But if you look at the investments we put into mental health of this country, it's negligible, all right? Yet, a country that has been declared a mental emergency case ought to be putting more money in making sure that the countrymen and women have good mental health, are not thinking suicide, all right? So one would have expected that once this report was out, somebody would have taken it very seriously and started implementing it immediately, all right? Including putting more resources in training psychiatrists, all right? Putting more resources to expanding mental health programs, all right? Even simple things. I remember that report, one simple recommendation: conduct a happiness survey for Kenyans. Find out, are Kenyans happy or are they anxious out there, right?
Well, we've had just opinion polls only doing that kind of survey only.
But they only do about, are you happy with political party A, political B, or all that, all right? But simple things. So one would have expected the government to put its money, invest more in the health of Kenyans, mental health of Kenyans, okay? But we only talk about mental health and suicide when someone kills themselves, all right? Or when someone kills someone. That's when we get this conversation about mental health, about suicide. So we're not doing enough. That's what I can say. More needs to be done to implement this report. More needs to be done to make sure that every Kenyan out there has access to mental health, the same way they have access to getting treated for malaria and all that. More needs to be done to train more mental health professionals, more psychiatrists like Daktari here. Put them at the grassroots, those dispensaries, the lower-level hospitals. Nobody has to travel all the way to Mathari or to a hospital in Nairobi to get diagnosed that they are depressed, for example. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, important for us to have these conversations because there's a reality of the day.
Right.
And that if people can get help, and that's the way to look at this. If folks can get help because of a situation where it's dark for them, then we'll have the conversation and we'll keep talking about it until we see the numbers reduce and until we get comfortable as a society talking about the things that we are uncomfortable to talk about. So we want to thank you both for being here with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Nyamumbo Joseph has been here with us this morning, as well as Moshiri Karanja. Thanks for sharing in this conversation.
Thank you.
It's 8:02. Good morning.
The latest. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Good morning. This is the news. I'm Leah Ubag. Now, low voter turnout and technical hitches were characterized the first day, even as the commission.
This is the Situation Room,